Listen, you wee bastards. Life's too short to be messing around. You need to live your life. Enjoy your time here on planet Earth.
Yeah, what's up, everybody?
That's my new favorite thing in the world.
I think, is there an easy way to send people to that thing?
A link to a YouTube video in the show notes.
In the description of this.
That would do her. So I think from now on, I'm closing every show with that. And I want to open every show with...
Hey, morning, boys. This is Bear.
Hey, what up, Bear?
Just forever. Who needs British lady? We got Bear.
We got Bear. That's real. Who needs British lady? We got Bear.
What's happening, dude?
What up, man?
Any parts of your house fall off or anything this week?
No, but my car is fucked.
Are you serious?
Bro, no joke. 2 nights ago, I get into my car after a long day of work, turn my car on, and none of the dials on my dash work.
Those are kind of important, aren't they?
Bro, I've been driving like that for like 3 days.
Just in the dark?
Well, no, like all of mine are still physical. They're not like my car's not new enough for them to be digital representations of things. So I have like dashboard lights and I have headlights and rear lights. So I'm okay there, but I don't know how fast I'm driving. I don't know how many RPMs my car is at.
If it feels right, it's right.
And I don't know how much gas is in my car. So now I'm putting gas in my car like every
couple blocks,
every other day, basically, even though I drive like maybe 10 miles a day. Dude, just because I'm like, you're going
to catch a break one of these days.
Do you think?
Nah.
I don't either.
Nah.
I'm pretty sure it's like that David After Dentist kid where he's like, remember that old viral video of the little fucking
after
kid?
Dentist.
Yeah.
I thought you said Dennis. And I was like, Dennis, son of David?
David the Menace. The David the Menace, a less shittier kid. No, where he's like, is this real life? Is this forever? He's mentally adjusting to the concept that how high he is post-dentist could potentially be his new normal.
It's like the first time that you get way too high, you're like, oh, well, I guess this is life now.
Maybe
I live here now. This is my life.
This is uncomfortable and always.
It's probably permanent.
And it's always. That's kind of how I'm trying to think about it, because maybe I do catch a break and then I'm going to be like, holy shit, hey! And I'm going to be fucking psyched about it. But the chances of that happening anytime soon, I'm just not something I'm going to count on.
Whoa, I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Nervous for you, bro.
But anyway.
I hope you pull through.
Thanks. Thanks. I think by pull through, I think that means I'm going to have to maybe drive my car into a river.
No, that would be the opposite of pulling through. That would be you dying.
Well, I'm not going to be in it. I'm going to tuck and roll as it hits the cliff.
Big Lebowski style.
Yeah.
You ever seen it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I love that movie.
I added a few new sounds. Do you want to have them formally introduced, or do you want to just be surprised later on?
How about this? I'm going to thank our listeners for our 100th episode party.
Oh, right. This is technically our 100th episode, right? Or officially our 100th episode?
Officially our 100th episode. We had a 100th episode party, and you are currently listening to the 100th episode of the What If Podcast.
Fuck with us.
Hey, there it is.
We made it.
We made it. Player, we made it. It's good to see you, bud. 100 looks good on you.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
We old as fuck.
Yeah, I don't think either of us thought we'd be here 2 years ago.
Like alive?
Not like here at all.
You keep steering the episode in a dark direction.
No,
bro.
I did. I mean, 2 years ago, I don't think we knew that we were going to do 100 consecutive episodes and have thousands of listeners from all over the world.
Yeah, I thought there would be fewer episodes and it would be sadder and we'd give up, honestly.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think it was like we're going to give this a shot and see what happens. And then it turns out you motherfuckers are hanging out with us every week.
Hey.
What's up with y'all?
Yeah, there it is.
I updated some of our Brother Nature sounders today.
Get at us, Brother Nature. We want you on the show. But yeah, seriously, thank you to everybody who came out to Ice House for our 100th episode show.
That was super fun.
There were people there from Illinois and Iowa and North Dakota. All y'all motherfuckies drove hella hours to come see us. By the way, the North Dakota table, I was going to try to give you guys some swag.
Wait, what? There was a North Dakota table?
There was a table of 5 people from North Dakota there.
God damn.
I know. And we gave swag to the people who were there from Illinois because we were like, holy shit, you drove further. And then I was going to give swag to the North Dakota people too. But then then we got distracted and then they left before we could give away swag at the end of the night when we were doing Q&A. So if you're that North Dakota table, y'all drove super far, send us an email at hi@whatifpodcast.com, and I'm going to send you guys something for being cool as shit, for going far as fuck. Speaking of that episode, that party in that episode, we're not going to put it on the normal feed because live shows are inherently a little different.
Yeah.
The audio, they're really fun to do, and it seemed like everybody had a really good time, but the audio is just not always super great.
It's fine, but it's not the same as being in a studio, and the vibe is always different because you're talking to a crowd and not you guys in your earbuds.
Right. So we decided to put that out on the Patreon for free. So if you go to patreon.com/whatifpodcast, that's where we do an extra episode of the show every week for just $5 a month. And sometimes we make those things freely available to everybody. And so we decided that would be a good home for the audio for that show. So if you want to hear what the 100th episode party sounded like, we had Lydia Liza there, we had Sims there, we had Claire de Lune DJing, and we drank gin and beer on stage and talked about a whole bunch of weird shit.
Also, I'm at least really into the idea of doing more live shows. And if you were one of the people that wanted to make it to our show but couldn't because you live far away or had stuff going on,
you should tell us about that.
Yeah, we would be interested in seeing what cities you guys might come see us in, and if you have leads on where we could do such things and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
Send us an email because we're down to try and set some more of those up.
For sure. And and anybody who's like out there who's like, hell yeah, I'd come see you if you were in my town. Like, that's good for us to know too, because
yeah, exactly.
Because we don't always. I mean, we have data, but we don't know where all you guys are. And if we get a critical mass from a certain location, we'll be like, ah, fuck it, we're going to Birmingham or whatever.
Yeah, that's a place I've never been. That'd be great.
I would totally go. I'm just saying, I don't think the vast majority of our listeners are in Birmingham.
Well, you know how we're gonna find out?
If 612-246-4614.
Oh, Ryan, you know what? We got some wild voicemails. Speaking of our phone number, and I feel like we should play at least a couple of them.
I think you're absolutely correct. I had that on my list of things to cover today.
Okay, great.
Before we dive into
sorry,
the topic of today's show, we're gonna bury the lead. I'm gonna tell a long story about the episode today.
Awesome.
Long time listener. I started listening back when you had 411 on. I got a crazy story for you.
Okay.
My family, we got a deep bloodline. It goes back really far. My uncle was in the Vatican for 30-some years.
I think he said neat.
A neat bloodline.
As in, like, interesting.
And his uncle was in the Vatican for 36 years?
Correct.
Do you have to be a Vatican-blooded person to live in the Vatican?
Vatican-blooded person. No.
Hey guys, it's been 100 episodes, and we're still asking stupid questions.
I have no idea.
Okay, I just didn't understand the connection between the Vatican and the bloodline thing, but yeah, whatever.
We're gonna get there.
Is this gonna be his Uncle Jesus?
He wanted me to go to some initiation program with him.
Excuse me?
Out in Chichen, Mexico.
Excuse me?
He didn't tell me where I was going.
Wait, it sounds like he did though. It sounds like he told you exactly where.
Maybe he's saying, in retrospect, I was in Chichen Itza, Mexico.
Fair point.
I was going to meet, but he said I was going to meet people that I would know the rest of my life. And he was always involved in, I don't know if he was Jezebel, I don't know what he was, but he was involved in some deep shit. And
did he say Jezebel?
I remember that the day I was supposed to leave to go fly to Mexico with him and go have some initiation program, my friend had a suicide attempt, and I canceled on him. And he showed up at the house, and he was furious. He looked like Senator Palpatine from Star Wars. That's what he looked like, talked like him, and he flipped out. He cursed me. He said, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm fucking up big time that this will never happen again. And I saw his eyes turn jet black. And then my dad came in the room to get in between us, and he started arguing with him. And it looked like a shimmer behind him. It looked like a reptilian was standing behind him.
Just in case anybody didn't catch that, it said it looked like a reptilian was standing behind him.
His eyes turned jet black, and then a shimmery reptile was behind his uncle?
Correct.
And my dad saw it. I saw it. No one else saw it. We kind of got all spooked out. We didn't know what the fuck we just saw. It just looked like something from Dreamcatcher, like an alien just standing behind them. And he kept cursing me out, saying that I'm going to regret this, that I was going to meet people that I could never ever meet again now. And we eventually got rid of him, threw him out of the house, and he went back to Mexico, and we never heard from him since. And that's one of my crazy stories. I'll be calling you guys up. I got a bunch more crazy stories. I was in the Navy, and I saw a bunch of weird shit when I was out there in Afghanistan, and I recorded it, but I'll save that for another phone call. Keep doing your thing, guys. Love your show.
Did he say, and I recorded it? Was that the... Hang up the phone, Mike.
Dial 0 for the operator. Boop. What? Mike? Mike is his name?
Correct.
Thanks for calling, Mike. That's a fucking wild story. Yes, I do believe he ended that with, I saw a bunch of wild shit out in Afghanistan and I recorded it, I think was the sentence, yes.
He called us back a couple minutes later.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to listen to whatever the rest of he had to say?
As long as we have room for that one voicemail we got, that's very, very short.
Oh, yeah, we'll get to that.
Okay.
The 5-second one?
Yep.
Yeah, we'll play that.
Okay, great.
Hey, guys, this is Michael again. I just left a message about my uncle in the Vatican.
Did?
Just listening to your new podcast about that New Mexico incident. I got a little light to share on that.
Do you not want to get into that?
Well, guys, what had happened was...
Yeah.
I don't know. We can... Here's the deal. The official explanation for it is a huge total bummer, and we're really glad we put that episode out before that happened, because otherwise we never would have done the episode in the first place. I still think there's some interesting things about the story that aren't explained by the official explanation, but I also just don't really want to necessarily play in that world.
Fair enough.
All that much. So we did have a couple people who had some really interesting takes, including a listener who lives by the observatory, but well,
okay.
I'm consigned to let that story fade into the interwebs.
Cool. So we got a bunch of voicemails about that, so we'll skip those. Let's see. We've got a UFO Bigfoot story. You want to hear that one?
I mean,
okay.
Sounds.
Hey, Spencer and Ryan, this is Bradley from Oregon.
Hi, Bradley. I'm going to be in your state.
I was just wanting to call and say that I really do enjoy listening to your guys' show, and anyway, I listen to you guys at work all the time, so it gets me through the shift. But,
hell yeah.
Anyway, I just, one of the reasons why I called is I wanted to share a little story. But anyway, I got this friend, and his mom is a bit of a conspiracy theorist, and anyway, so I spent enough time over there to kind of see what she does and whatnot, and you know, I mean, Bigfoot, UFOs, all that kind of stuff. And anyway, she claims to have seen a bunch of UFOs outside of her house. And
how many constitute a bunch?
That is an indeterminate but sizable number, I would say.
Yeah.
Anyway, so whenever she sees one, she'll always drag us out there. And I will say that I'm not necessarily a believer in UFOs, but I've seen this one thing in particular that I can't necessarily explain. It looks like an orange orb of light over I-5, and anyway, it just floats around like one of those like those Chinese lanterns, you know, with the little candle.
Oh yeah.
And anyway, it just looks like it floats around, but what really makes it odd is it always happens around 10 o'clock at night.
Punctual aliens.
And it always...
got places to be.
It looks like... It looks like somebody's welding. Like, there's the main orange spot, and then it looks like there's little drops of slag coming off of it.
Oh, crazy.
And it's just flying through the air, dropping all these smaller yellow orbs. And
Any orbs?
Any orbs,
You know, like I said, I mean, I'm not a real big believer in UFOs, but sure as hell is one if I've ever seen one. But anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you guys, and I really enjoy your podcast, and keep doing what you're doing. And have a good day.
Thanks, Bradley. Have a good day.
That was the best.
Yeah.
Sign. Good day.
He was like, yeah, have a good day.
Fuck you guys.
Fucking thanks, Bradley from Oregon. I'm gonna be in your backyard tomorrow.
Hey, me too. Well, not quite tomorrow.
You're gonna be there in 3 days.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that constitutes a UFO. You've seen one, my friend. If you don't know what it is and it's in the sky,
Yes.
it's the definition of the acronym.
Ryan, you mentioned our travels.
Did.
We are going to be at Portland-ish, but at an undisclosed location, so don't hang out with us. But unofficial What If podcast meetup at the Clippers-Wolves preseason game at Staples Center October 3rd. I'll drink a beer with anybody that goes to the Clippers and Wolves game on October 3rd.
All right. Go hang out with Spencer, guys. I won't be there, so he's calling all Los Angelians.
Also, don't hurt me. Please be nice.
Californians. You're going to have to dig through a big bucket of people to find you.
It's the Clippers and Wolves preseason. Can't be that many.
Yeah, but
like
Staples,
30, 40.
30, 40 people total?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That sounds real.
Is this I think I found the one that you wanted to for sure
Yeah,
play.
we'll do one more voicemail, and then we're diving into our foo-foo.
It's Short Dog, baby.
I don't know who that is.
5-second voicemail.
It sounds a little bit like Rob.
At the beginning it did, but not at the end.
It's Short Dog, baby.
Who's the dude who leaves us all the fake Southern accent voicemails? Cam? Could be Cam.
It's Short Dog, baby.
Oh, it might be because Cam was the one that asked about.
Was he the one who asked if we like too short?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, there you go.
That's fantastic. Well, it sounds about right to me.
All right. I think the rest of our voicemails are all about the observatory stuff, so we'll skip those because they're not probably relevant anymore.
Thanks to everybody for both using and abusing our voicemail for just screaming short dog, as well as telling us
that's exactly. One person called and just yelled short dog, baby, and somebody else told us about the time that their uncle turned into an alien reptile.
Yes, I'm saying thank you for using it and abusing it in all the ways that you guys do.
No, there's
it's
no
my
abuse.
That
is the exact intended purpose of that phone number.
Using it the way it's supposed to be used. Yes. All right. Well, shit. Should we dive in?
Hell yeah. Yeah, weird things are happening. I think it's fine.
Do you think it's fine?
Do I maybe have?
Are you auto-tuned right now?
I think we might be accidentally tracking with auto-tune. Let me.
Wait, am I too?
No. And it's not being tracked if it is on there. But Ryan might be listening to me in our headphones with auto-tune on my microphone.
Wait. What are the chances that you on auto-tune is being recorded into the stream right now?
0.
Ah, damn it.
I know.
Because I was like, we're this far, man. We're going all the way.
I'll take it off because it's annoying the shit out of me.
This is the first time I noticed it, but
all right, it's gone.
It is gone. Damn.
Sorry. We could put it on both mics just for our own entertainment the rest of the way.
We would never pay attention to anything. I would just break into T-Pain songs like in the middle of the episode. We should do one episode where we track it in that way, and we should do a whole 30-minute episode where it's just you and me talking to each other.
Our podcast turned into a musical?
Yeah, we just do 10-second covers of all our favorite songs.
That sounds awful for everyone listening and fun for us.
Well, we'll put it on the Patreon. We transitioned today to our topic of discussion, the Foo Fighters, and not the band, the Foo Fighters.
Great band, though.
The great band. The original, the OG Foo Fighters that the Foo Fighters took their name from.
World War II.
World War II. So
Weird shit in the skies.
So what we need to do before we can actually tell you what a Foo Fighter is.
They're originally called fucking Foo Fighters, by the way. I learned that today.
Don't worry, I'll get there.
Okay, cool.
It's so great.
That was new information to me, and I enjoyed it.
Another one. The sentence we will get to eventually is, it's another one of those fucking Foo Fighters, which is just a fantastic thing.
I think they should have gone with that for the band name, by the way.
The fucking Foo Fighters?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's a missed opportunity. So before we can dive too deep into Foo Fighters themselves, we have to talk about the 415th Squadron. World War II era, you're right, Spencer. And in fact, we got to rewind all the way to 1943, where the P-61 was what composed of the entirety of the 415th Night Fighter Squadron. And that's only relevant for one reason.
So many words I don't understand right now.
P-61 is the name of an airplane. It's a type of airplane.
Okay.
It was being used in World War II towards the middle/end of the war. And the 415th Night Fighter Squadron was made up entirely of P-61s. Okay?
All right.
P-61s are important for one specific reason. Flying at night was not a super common thing that was done back in the earlier half of the century.
Before lights were invented?
Before lights were invented. We're not that far back.
You couldn't have candles on your plane because they would blow out.
Oh, right. But
Yeah.
You mean before having lights on the plane?
Right. Yeah. They tried putting candles like along the wings, but
It just
once you got over like 3 miles an hour, yeah, it didn't work.
whoosh. No, but more than anything, it was there was not enough electrical light everywhere to have enough visual signposts on very dark nights to help planes actually navigate how far they had gone successfully. It also was because in the war, you have U.S. pilots flying over the French-German border, which is a place that they've, especially for the new squadrons when they land, they've never seen before. So they have no actual like context for what they're seeing when it's dark out.
Okay.
That's why the 415th is important, because they were trained to be night flyers in foreign locations. And part of what made them good at what they did was that their planes, the P-61, were painted glossy all black, completely dark, so that they could get basically undetected in the skies. They had all of their internal lights off inside and no external lights on the airplanes, which allowed them to see any light around them in a better fashion so that they could navigate better. Does that make sense? So there's no like light spoilage in their eyes.
Right. Your
as
eyes
they're flying.
adjust to total darkness.
Right.
Okay.
They had to, I actually found it was fascinating. They had to close one eye when they shot their guns and turn their head to the side a little bit so that the muzzle flash would protect, or the closing of their eyes would protect their one eye from muzzle flash.
Closing your eyes before you shoot a gun seems like a bad policy.
Yeah, but you're in the sky, right? So like you're only going to hit,
In the sky, anything goes. Just fucking light her up, bud.
I'm just saying, like, you're not going to hit a pedestrian or a bystander.
Well,
You're going to hit.
Those bullets don't just stay in the sky forever.
Well, they fall. Mm-hmm. I mean, it would hurt your head for sure. Would it kill you if someone just dropped a bullet out of the sky from the level of an airplane? Does that kill people?
In 100 episodes, that is by far the dumbest question we've asked.
Is that yes?
Yes, of course.
Well, I don't know. I mean,
anything from that height a fucking penny from that height would fuck you up.
Yeah, it's true. Wind resistance, though? No? All right.
A bullet falling from the sky directly into your head would kill you.
I guess airplanes are big bullets,
as much as
too.
getting shot in the head would kill you.
I wonder what that speed is when it hits the ground. What's terminal velocity for a bullet
12?
Dropped from 10,000 feet?
Why are you being so lazy, my boy? Come on, man.
That's good.
Dude,
new drops.
That's one of my new favorites.
New drops.
It's
We're going to do that every time we don't know the answer to
Why are you
anything.
being so lazy, my boy?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
That's good. It's just disappointed.
All right, so we have these blacked out planes being flown by dudes with their eyes closed.
Yep, pretty much.
Trying not to land in Germany?
Trying to
land in Germany?
Trying to navigate the French-German border.
Okay.
And keep it safe, which means they got to look for airplanes. They got to determine whose they are, make radio contact if they're friendly, Or if they find that they're German, they engage them in night fights, which sounds absolutely fucking terrifying.
Did you say night or knife?
Night fights?
Okay.
I'm going on the wing.
Yeah, airplane knife fight got you.
I was imagining in my head. I was imagining the scene from West Side Story where they duct tape or like tie their arms together.
You just gotta tape your planes together.
and then a German dude and an American dude jump onto their plane wings and they're like, "On guard, motherfucker!" and just knife duel to the death.
Dad, blame it, boy.
Yeah, that would be pretty fucking intense. Night fights. They're shooting at each other at night. Also doing bombing runs along German protected exits and entrances into the country, things like that. So that's what's important to know about the 415th Squadron, and that's because the 415th was one of the primary people to view and identify Foo Fighters for the first time. So Lieutenant Fred Ringwald is in a P-61 with Lieutenant Ed Schluter and Lieutenant Donald Meyer.
Guess what happened?
Oh, sweet. Fantastic. I feel like you're like my new hype man with all these new sounders.
Just trying them out, trying to see where they fit in, you know?
For sure. So this is a year after the P-61s were introduced to World War II in 1943. This is November of 1944. It's night because that's what they did. They did runs every single night in multiple squads at a time. And off the wing of the plane, Lieutenant Fred Ringwald comments to his co-pilots, "I wonder what those lights are over there in the hills." They're flying along the Rhine Valley when he says this. And according to the pilots who were interviewed after the fact, they saw 8 to 10 lights in a row that they referred to as there are different descriptions. Some say they're cigar-shaped with a circular orange light at the end of it. Some did not report seeing a cigar shape at all, just seeing a circular orb light, orange light. Sometimes it's also said to be white or yellow, but circular, bright light in a grouping off of the wing of their airplane.
Okay.
It's, I think, worth noting that UFOs are not a common pop culture thing in the way that they were post Roswell.
The timing of all of this is really interesting.
Yeah.
And we can maybe get into that later, but 42 is pre like any of the UFO stories that are now in the lore of UFOs and aliens and all that shit. That was really didn't start until like 46, 47.
Yeah, and this is 44 because it's a couple years into the war, but there are reports of these being spotted kind of circling the 44 time period in general.
Yeah.
And going into later. So they are, like I said, 8 to 10 of them in a row off of the right wing, and they check in with radar and say, guys, what we seeing? Because it's part of their job to literally find enemy planes and go after them.
Stab the shit out of them.
Go tie that wing together and make shit happen. But there's nothing on radar. So, thinking that this is some sort of either like a posse of German airplanes or some sort of a weapon of some kind or a bomb or something like that, they turn the plane in a full rotation to go after it. Now, these weren't like fighter jets. They had 3 people on them. They're a little bit bigger than a normal fighter jet. So it's not like you're not going fucking Mach 5 and like busting to the right and they're there in 2 seconds kind of thing.
Yeah.
But by the time they get to where they think the lights were gone. So it was enough.
Was there any sound associated with it?
Not that they reported.
Okay. Although maybe, I don't know if that would have been audible over the sound of your own plane. And
I wonder that
Whatever.
too. In my investigation of this, I read something about the night flyers sometimes actually coming up behind planes and getting so close to them that they could visually spot that they were in fact German. And then that's when they would attack, because based on rules of engagement, they had to know that they were enemy German fighters to actually make a attack on them. So they had to actually identify them as German through a flag or whatever. But I was like, damn, how close do you have to be in the sky at night with no light to be able to actually identify a German flag on these airplanes and then attack them? I was like, wouldn't you hear that or wouldn't you see that? But maybe you wouldn't see it, but maybe you also wouldn't hear it because, like you said, can you hear a plane over your plane?
of your own, yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. And then, there are many other similar reports of unidentified lights being close to or flying in formation with or being visible from planes.
Yes.
And then either disappearing or moving off in a seemingly impossible direction or whatever.
Yeah, there was
all of your typical UFO stuff.
Yes, yes and no. I mean, I think yes. I don't want to totally write it off as typical stuff, mostly because at the time there was no typical for these guys.
No, I'm saying what has now become typical of UFO reports in terms of like, we couldn't catch up to it, or it shot straight up, or it made a right angle turn at 500 miles an hour.
Yes, some of them said that they would be followed for what felt like hundreds of miles, often in a pattern that felt like they were almost magnetically connected, as in they would turn to move and the lights would follow them. Some of the 415th pilots talked about how they were, quote, scared shitless of them, which I have to imagine if your pure profession is getting up into a 3-man airplane in the pitch black. One of the guys said that if it was a moonless night, they hated it because they wanted it to be pitch black up there.
Wait, what?
The 415th pilots, they preferred
a moonless
when it was
night would mean that it is darker.
Right. And I'm saying they preferred it to be even darker, which to me is even scarier.
Oh, you said if it was a moonless night, they hated it, but you meant the opposite.
Oh, sorry. If it was a full moon, they hated it. Yes. My bad. So these guys, like, for a fucking job, get into military airplanes, knowing they're potentially going to engage in fucking airplane knife fights in the pitch black. And these fucking lights off of the plane are the things that are scaring them shitless. I get that it's like intimidating, but also what scares you at all at that point if you're those fucking guys?
Well, it's the whole thing of like, not only can you not identify what it is, but it appears to be vastly superior to you.
Yes.
Like it can track something in a way that you can't. It's more agile, it's faster.
In that direction. Yep.
It's it doesn't show up on radar, all that stuff. So like that, and yet you're seeing it physically right in front of you or right next to you.
Right.
So if you're assuming it is like a military related something, if it's something that the Germans have cooked up or whatever, like that would be much scarier than seeing another plane, because you have training around what to do with that. You're prepared for that.
Right.
And you know that it's a relatively level playing field.
Right.
A weird orb that you can't get rid of is, for sure scarier.
For sure. There are some pretty interesting photos available. If you just Google Foo Fighter lights or Foo Fighter photographs, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to work.
Foo Fighter photographs will not get you
Foo
there. That will
Fighter
get you Dave
UFO
Grohl.
photographs, I think, will do it.
Do you really Google photographs rather than hitting the images tab? In this week's episode of Ryan Google shit, what did you just type in?
I typed Foo Fighter UFO photographs.
Okay. And success?
Yes.
Failure?
Success.
Okay.
There are many, and they point to a lot of, usually these have been taken from like adjacent planes in a formation. Mm-hmm. So you can see a lot of planes in them, but then there are these strange sort of like blobs of white light. Well, it looks white. I mean, the photos are black and white, but you can definitely like get a vibe for what they're talking about.
So I want to go back to the timing of this stuff for a minute.
Tight.
Because you said this was happening in 40, you said 44 or 46? Sorry, what year?
It's the first documented Foo Fighter sighting was in November of 1944.
Okay.
They continued through the end of the war.
Which
And
was September of 45, correct?
I have it here.
I think that's right.
Go
It
ahead.
was 39 to 45.
September 2nd of 1945,
yeah.
yes.
So in 47, you have Roswell. July of 47.
Correct.
In June of 47, you have, what was the dude? Kenneth Arnold, the Mount Shasta, or not Mount Shasta, Mount Rainier sighting that coined the whole flying saucers term.
Yep.
2 weeks later, you have Roswell. June of 47 was also the Maury Island sighting. That's the Puget Sound,
Yep.
a UFO killed my dog one.
Yep.
And in 40, what was it? The Battle of Los Angeles was somewhere right in there too. You know that story?
Yep.
That was 42.
Battle of Los Angeles was 42?
Was 42. That was the one where there was a UFO over LA and the military engaged it for hours and spent like 1 million rounds trying to shoot a thing out of the sky. And there's that one really spooky photograph of all the searchlights on a UFO over LA.
Yep.
And then there was the green fireball stuff. You ever heard that?
I don't know if I know that one.
There were, quote, green fireballs that showed up like over and around and near a lot of U.S. military bases in the 40s.
Maybe we need to do another episode on that. That sounds
and
fun as shit.
None of them ever like did anything or engaged with anyone.
Yeah.
Nor were they engaged with by the military. But they actually investigated and to try and figure out, like, is this some sort of, I guess, early drone or some sort of foreign hostile thing because of, where it happened to be showing up.
Right.
And eventually determined that it was probably some sort of natural phenomena that they didn't understand, like along the lines of a ball lightning or St. Elmo's fire or something like that.
Yeah, just to write off like a handful of things for explanations before we get where you're going. There was St. Elmo's fire, which is basically like an electromagnetic ball that is formed in a thunderstorm that it's far more complicated than that, the actual science behind it, but I'm not going to try to explain that.
Glows?
Yep.
For short?
Yep.
Okay.
Some people tried to write off the Foo Fighter sightings as combat fatigue, some sort of shared delusion from a group of guys.
Sleep deprivation hallucinations or
one
something.
Guy goes, I think I saw it. Another guy goes, I think I saw it too. And then all of a sudden they're all starting to see him because they all think they're seeing him. That was also written off because no one felt like there was any psychosis going on with the guys. They were otherwise completely normal. We're not.
That would be a big problem for your pilots.
To fatigue to the point of delusion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that would.
You'd want to get those guys out of there.
Probably, especially if you had multiple squads, which for the 415th and for some others in the area, it was. So written off is probably not super likely. St. Elmo's fire probably wouldn't have happened that frequently. It's a super rare phenomenon. It is documented, but it's super rare.
Well, and that would have had to be, I don't obviously really understand how it works, but wouldn't it be like a charge on the plane itself? So you'd be like looking out and seeing that on the wing, right? It's not just going to happen out in the air and then somehow follow you, right?
I have, my understanding of it is that it has to be within some proximity to like a physical item, but I don't understand how that works.
Okay. You would think you would notice though if something was like literally attached to your wing rather than in the distance or trailing you or following you.
Yep, for sure.
Most of the descriptions don't seem to match that.
Right. And then the last one that seemed potentially like it could explain it to some extent was the concept of Japanese fire balloons, which was it was a technique that they used in the war where they floated like helium-filled balloons with incendiary devices attached to them with the hopes that if they would either intentionally put a slow leak in them when they released them or just knowing over time that if they lift it up with this much helium and float it in that direction, it's eventually going to crash, and when it does, it's going to blow up or be on fire.
So they're like sky mines?
Yeah, that's one way to put it. So they either...
that you can't control the location of?
Well, you use weather patterns to hope that they go in the direction you want them to go in.
That you can very loosely estimate the direction of?
I mean, if you're fighting another country and like the wind's right that day, send
Fuck everything to the west.
send everything up and pray for the best.
Ugh. Okay.
But thinking that essentially, kind of going back to some of the weather balloon stuff, like you've got maybe 10 or 15 of these up in the sky, and that light reflecting off of it would be potentially enough to illuminate it. But
did any of them ever explode?
No.
Okay.
And also, they weren't lit on fire and then sent up. They were things that could start on fire, but the chances that 10 of them would start on fire in the sky at the same time is just not really.
I think the idea of light reflecting off of something and appearing to be like creating light rather than reflecting it seems possible, especially in, if you're in remote areas in the 40s at night with little or no moonlight, it's going to be completely black. Any light is going to appear pretty bright.
Sure.
Even if it's reflecting, I don't know. I don't know what it would be reflecting, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Exploding bomb balloons.
Boom balloons.
Exploding boom booms.
Boom balloon. I want a boom balloon for my birthday.
I think we can probably write that off.
Yeah, I don't think it's that. I don't think it's combat fatigue, and I really don't think it's St. Elmo's fire either.
Because most of these were not seen anywhere near Japan, correct? Also,
I think it was the idea of incendiary balloons in general. Japan was notably used them, but they're saying that it's distinctly possible that it was a shared technique.
Well, along those lines, weren't the Germans working on a bunch of crazy, technologically advanced weaponry?
Oh, you mean
that was very secretive?
Oh, you mean Werner von Braun?
Well, that guy, but I mean of the more secretive and horrific angle than the dude who was actually building rockets and stuff.
Say more about that.
There are all those, I don't know, I haven't dug into it too much, but the whole Wunderwaffe thing of they were working on some sort of super secret weapon and or weapons to combat the US developing nukes.
I mean, yeah,
and the whole idea of the weird Nazi bell thing.
I do not know the Nazi bell.
Oh, really? That's an Ancient Aliens classic.
Heyo.
They built it, allegedly built a thing that no one really knows the purpose of, and it was shaped like a bell, and people thought it was maybe some sort of weapon, but maybe also a time machine, and it looks a little bit like a UFO.
Oh.
Yeah, it's anyway.
Okay.
Bigger question. It seems possible that the Germans or other countries could have been developing some sort of secret weapon that may have been able to track and or pace airplanes. Yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. The reason that I brought up Werner von Braun is because some people posit that, so von Braun is most notable for the V2 rocket, which, the V2 rocket was something that Germany was developing throughout the course of the war. That was a rocket that was used to fly missiles and potentially launch things. And they were testing them and developing them during World War II. It was like a long range ballistic missile that was faster and further than most had been capable of at that point. And so there were some speculations that if they were sending up a bunch of ballistic missiles, is it possible that a cigar-shaped thing with a fiery end
sounds like a rocket.
The Germans testing one or many or multiple ballistic missiles at a time. And so you would see a pattern of orange lights because they're shooting them off one at a time up into the sky to actually test the missiles. But it doesn't explain the tracking behavior. It doesn't exactly explain the hard turns or...
Unless they were also testing the guidance capabilities of them.
Absolutely.
And they were much more advanced than we thought.
Absolutely. Also, the V2 is only what we know about because it's what's actually been documented and came out after the fact of the war. So what we don't know, well, not the only thing we know about, but I'm saying
No, my was, I think it was earlier, wasn't it? Wasn't it 44?
That the V2 was actually like made
in service, so to speak?
Yes.
Okay.
But I'm saying like we as the US were not aware that they had this thing that was the V2 and it was doing this thing.
Sure. I'm just saying
in the
that
way that we
the
understand it
timing could potentially work out.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the timing, to your point, gets messier because von Braun was part of Operation Paperclip.
Post-war. Yeah.
Which we know for a fact that he was then recruited. Well, not recruited. I mean, we gathered up a certain set of scientists and engineers and physicists in Operation Paperclip and brought them to the United States and said, now you work for us and we get your brain. And von Braun's V2 rocket was part of what put us on the moon because the V2 rockets turned into the Apollo mission and he was lauded as like an American hero for converting to our side and using his rocket knowledge.
You got a good plea deal
to put us on the moon.
We won't charge you with war crimes if you put us on the moon.
If you put us on the moon. And really legitimately, like that's well documented and exactly what happened. Like von Braun was like a TV figure. I mean, he was like seen on TV and stuff like that because he would be interviewed about the process.
Yeah.
So the question is, was von Braun or the people he was working with, were they developing something that pilots in Germany or in German and French airspaces were seeing evidence of in the skies? Those sightings stopped when the war stopped. So right around 45.
Yes and no.
Because
I think an interesting part of the Foo Fighter stuff, yes. But it's also right at the moment when there's this huge influx of other unidentified aerial phenomena being reported that has then continued through now.
Oh, absolutely. And that's sort of where I was getting was like, we lift this guy up who we know is responsible for making these rockets, and we don't know what else he's responsible for contributing to in the German area. Specifically in that area, those types of sightings cease. We know he gets moved to the United States and starts working on rockets and flight projects. And not 2 years later, a shiny disc shows up in the desert outside of New Mexico.
Let me add something / maybe throw a wrench into that theory.
Tight.
Are you familiar with ghost rockets?
I mean, conceptually, I understand what you're talking about.
Okay, but you have not heard that term before?
No.
Okay. So primarily in Sweden.
Can I be reincarnated
as a ghost rocket?
Like, do I get to yell it when I die? Like, I want to come back a rocket. And then I'm just like in purgatory.
Is that how it works? You just got to shotgun it on your way out?
I think it's like dibs. Yeah.
Give me a turtle. They seem pretty chill.
Yes. I'm doing
Life was too fast. I want to slow down.
And then you close your eyes and you literally open them again and you're just screaming through the sky as a ghost rocket, like,
oh, I was like, that is not where turtles live, bro. You done goofed, God.
Ghost turtle rocket. Turtle ghost rocket.
Yes. Well,
add it to the list.
Maybe some people only form like half-baked ideas of what they want to be, and that's how you get like cryptids and UFOs and stuff.
Oh, sure, because you just get stuck in the
middle.
middle.
You got reincarnated as like kind of a gorilla.
Yeah.
You got distracted at the last minute and thought about like Yao Ming, so you got too tall.
Sure.
And human-like.
That makes, you know what? It makes a lot of sense.
You really wanted to be a pilot, but then you thought about like how much you like tea at the last minute and you turned into a flying saucer.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. It's all everything's connected.
Everything's connected.
Anyway, Sweden and other parts of Scandinavia in 1946. This happened entirely contained within the year of 1946.
Okay.
There were lots of reports of, quote, ghost rockets.
Sick.
Where people saw things that looked like rockets or missiles. Sometimes they would say, the report would be, I saw a rocket. Other times it would be, I saw a cylindrical object, or a cigar-shaped object, or other, related shapes.
Sure.
First reported over southern Sweden in May of 46. And then in June, they were reported over Finland and Denmark. And by the end of July, several hundred of these had been reported seen over Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and Norway. Most of the reports were just from people who looked up and saw rockets.
Okay.
But there were a lot that were observed and then investigated by the Swedish and later the U.S. military.
So just to clarify, everyone's going, hey, that looks like a rocket. And no one's going, yeah, that's our rocket.
Okay. Yes. First thought is those are rockets, but then that's super concerning if you don't know who they belong to,
Correct.
where they came from, or where they're going.
Hey, you dropped your rocket.
Right. Like just seeing rockets.
Does somebody need this rocket?
Seeing rockets flying over you constantly is concerning.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that you can drop, and it's like, oh yeah, this must just be somebody else's. Rockets, not one of those things.
The second part that was concerning, or maybe less concerning, depending on how you look at it, none of them were ever seen impacting anything or coming down.
Okay.
And no remnants of them were ever found. The only time people saw them hit the ground or like come down were when they would fly into bodies of water.
Whoa.
So they appeared to be guided into bodies of water. The Swedish military investigated this and actually went on some dives into bodies of water where they had seen these missiles land or crash or whatever.
To be like, where you at though?
Yeah, to see if they could recover it and see, okay, who's making this? Where did it come from? What is it?
Mm-hmm.
And they were never able to recover anything.
Mm.
Although in one instance found a new crater at the bottom of a lake.
Sick.
So they hypothesized that they were made out of something designed to dissipate or disintegrate upon impact.
Detonate.
Yes. So these were originally thought to be Soviet missile tests, because even back then the Soviets didn't really give a fuck about letting anyone else know what they were doing.
Sure.
And really loved military exercises and just, trying to blow shit up.
Yes, this is our rocket, and please fuck you.
But they never found any fragments of the rockets. The rockets usually left no exhaust trail, which was also weird. And some of them moved incredibly slowly, sometimes as slow as 65 miles per hour.
Is that a rocket then?
Great question. Can
anything fly at 65 miles an hour?
Great question. No the short answer, no. Well, that's not true. Like, a hot air balloon goes at but like rocket
or like a drone or something.
Rocket propelled things usually do not move at 65 miles an hour.
We made the shittiest rocket possible.
It's basically a minivan.
The little rocket that could.
We made a flying minivan.
We're trying. We made a flying minivan. We made a shitty rocket.
A lot of them didn't have like wings or fins, which are also usually an important part of a rocket.
It just sounds like a flying turd that's a big slow turd in the sky.
Some of the rockets that were seen...
You're taking away literally all the rocket characteristics. No fins, no fire. It's really slow. Isn't that just a UFO at that point?
Well, yeah, except we didn't have those terms yet, so they were called ghost rockets, which I think we should have stuck with, honestly.
Actually, when you put it like that, you're right.
On October 10th of 1946, the Swedish Defense Staff stated in a public statement, quote, "Most observations are vague and must be treated very skeptically. However, in some cases, clear, unambiguous observations have been made that cannot be explained as natural phenomena. Swedish aircraft or imagination on the part of the observer. Echo, radar, and other equipment registered readings but gave no clue as to the nature of the objects." So the Swedish military is saying, yes, we've seen these things. Yes, we've caught them on radar. No, we don't know what they are, except that they're not our aircraft or, quote, natural phenomena.
I feel like they kind of fucked that up. Like, you can't just be like, yeah, I don't know, you guys, somebody's shooting rockets over here. It's not fucking us, but there's definitely happening.
The Swedish military, by the end of November, had confirmed 225 separate sightings that they determined to be, quote, real physical objects.
That's fucking far too many. That's like one every other day.
This was in the course of a year. It's, almost one a day.
And that's just the ones that are like documented sightings.
They received over 1,000 reports and could confirm 225 of them as being actual physical things.
God damn.
Yeah.
And this is all happening right around, like within a 3-year period of The Foo Fighters sightings
We're 2 years removed from Foo Fighters and 1 year before
Roswell.
all of the like US UFO stuff starts.
Fucking yeah, dude.
At one point, the United States Air Force Europe also investigated, right? Team America.
How's that work?
Yeah. Investigated the ghost rockets because they had a military presence and interest in Europe. And there was a document dated from November 4th of 1948 that was later declassified that has some wild fucking quotes in it.
1948. Okay, so this is this is like we're looking into this after this happened.
They had investigated the things that were happening in 46 and then filed a report about it 2 years later.
Okay, so they
And that
weren't
was
still
declassified.
happening at the rate that they were happening in 46 when this was happening?
No, all of these documented ghost rocket instances happened. They ended by December of 1946.
Okay.
I don't know when the U.S. was investigating them, if it was while they were happening or after they had happened. But then this memo was dated November of 48. So about 2 years after they had stopped occurring.
So they're still just like sitting in rooms going, hey, what the fuck was that?
Yeah. Or they're like, they compiled data while it was happening and then took 2 years to sort through it, or I don't know.
Sure.
This document was then 50 years later declassified, and it says, quote, "For some time, we have been concerned by the recurring reports on flying saucers." They're now calling them flying saucers by 48. They can periodically pop up. During the last week, one was observed hovering over Neubiberg Air Base, I don't know where that is, for about 30 minutes. They've been reported by so many sources and from such a wide variety of places that we are convinced they cannot be disregarded and must be explained on some basis which is perhaps slightly beyond the scope of our present intelligence thinking.
Yikes.
When officers recently visited the Swedish Air Intelligence Service, the question was put to the Swedes. Their answer was that some reliable and fully technically qualified people have reached the conclusion that, quote, "these phenomena are obviously the result of a high technical skill which cannot be credited to any presently known culture on Earth. They are therefore assuming that these objects originate from some previously unknown or unidentified technology, possibly outside of the Earth."
Damn.
So in 48, the U.S. Air Force is saying, we don't know what's going on, but we asked the Swedes and they said it's aliens.
And honestly, we think they're right because we don't have a better answer.
We don't have a better answer. Although accepting this theory, last part of this memo, this is now from U.S. Air Force guy who's writing it. Although accepting this theory of origin of these objects poses a whole new group of questions and puts much of our thinking in a changed light, we are inclined not to discredit entirely this somewhat spectacular theory while keeping an open mind on the subject. And that's what I think is so crazy about this era of these sightings is there's so much stuff happening. It's happening all over the world at this time. And there's not the like social cultural stigma attached to it yet, where the Air Force of multiple different countries, military, government, scientists, individual people are saying, what the fuck is that? Can we figure it out? And no one's saying like, oh, it's nothing. They're all saying like, yeah, that's fucking weird. Let's figure it out.
Right.
Let's spend some money and time and effort figuring out what that is because it's obviously a real thing. It's potentially dangerous because there are 1,000 rockets flying over our country that's not even involved in this war. And then when they land, they sink to the bottom of a lake and disappear. We should probably figure out what that is. And then they came to the conclusion that it was fucking aliens.
Like, that's legit the end of that sentence. Like, it's probably not from here, guys.
Yeah.
Fuck.
And that was okay, like, just to talk about as like, well, yeah, that seems pretty wild to us, but also like, I think we agree.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that's a far bridge and we don't know any other way to get there.
And then within the next 5 years, that type of thinking had, at least in the US, had totally disappeared.
It's interesting too, because at that time, these people are professionally required to indulge all of the possibilities associated with these conversations. And then at some point in the evolution of the topic, it becomes, like you said, like stigmatized. And instead of it being like, oh, you should entertain it with your job, it should be like, if you're doing a professional job and you saw this, should we talk? Should you have this job? Because you're obviously crazy if you even saw this in the sky.
Right. To now, like, pilots are hesitant to report anything anomalous
Right.
because they fear, losing their ability to fly.
Right.
Or their current position, at least.
Right.
I don't know. It does make me think that it lends credence to the idea of like an intentional government cover up of the whole topic.
Right.
Or like cover up / misinformation.
Yep.
Of like, we can't have people digging into this.
Yeah.
We can't be going around publicly saying, A, we don't know.
Right.
And B, it might be aliens. Like, that's not an acceptable position. So we have to do something else.
Right.
And both of those are bad because whether we just don't know what it is, well, that means that we can't control it and we're at risk. And the military that we spend hundreds of billions of dollars on every year can't come out and say like, yeah, we just can't protect you from this thing. And also we don't even know what it is.
Right.
And B, if it's aliens, that's worse because then we're all fucked. And also A still applies. We don't know what it is. We can't do anything about it, but also it's probably bad.
Yeah, for sure.
And by the way, like your religions were, probably wrong about some stuff.
if this is what we think it is.
Right.
There's this really interesting, I don't know are we coming up on the end here? We are, aren't we?
Yeah.
There's this really interesting kind of additional part of this, which is totally kind of in line with what you're talking about, which is the whole concept of the Robertson panel. Have you heard about this?
No.
So
or I don't remember the name, at least.
The panel itself came out of it was a recommendation to the Intelligence Advisory Committee in December of 1952, which was made by the CIA as they reviewed the Air Force investigation into UFOs. Project Blue Book,
yeah,
if you're familiar with the terminology. But the panel itself gave basically recommendations on like, well, what the fuck was happening and what should be done about it. Mm-hmm. And there's a really interesting part of this that I kind of want to read. It's from some memos inside of the study that came out of the panel. I think I said that right.
Okay.
So this is from a CIA analyst who says, it is important that there are many who believe in them and will continue to do so in spite of any official pronouncement which may be made. He's referring to these phenomena, which is looking into the UFO thing.
They being UFOs,
yes,
basically.
How, in spite of any official pronouncement which may be made, this whole affair has demonstrated that there is a fair proportion of our population which is mentally conditioned to acceptance of the incredible. Thus, we arrive at two danger points, which, in a situation of international tension, seem to have national security implications. And I think what they're kind of talking about or getting towards is this idea that, like, whether or not it's real, it is cause for concern because people either think it's a thing and it's scary that it's a thing, or people think it's a unidentified extra worldly thing, or they think it's some Cold War weaponry, some legacy Nazi weaponry.
Yeah, either way, it's pretty bad.
Either way, it's pretty bad. And so they think it's a national security implication, not in the way of like we have to protect from it, but more that we have to protect people from it.
Right.
And you can dig more into it and maybe
without ever saying what it is, though.
Well, right, but I think that's the concept is that
doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter either way. Like, this is not really good. And so to your point of like,
I don't know what it is, but it ain't good.
It ain't good. Like, is there a national effort to discredit the entertainment of these incredible things?
Just for the sake of like calm and normalcy?
Right.
Yeah.
Like if we just say, ha ha, little green men.
Well, dude, there is an active suppression of any ideas outside of the norm. Like, I mean, it's the reason that psychedelics are illegal.
Right.
Because you know what doesn't make for like productive people going to work for somebody else and not questioning what they're doing for 10 hours a day?
Right.
Like take some mushrooms and you'll start questioning all of that shit.
Yeah.
Right? Start wondering about what the fucking thing up in the sky that millions of people have seen that nobody ever wants to talk about is.
Right.
And see how productive you are at work the next day. Like those two things are just like not compatible, and especially in the United States.
Right.
And especially in the 50s and 60s.
Right.
There's just like, it makes sense to categorize it as all this shit over here is just bad for business.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what it is, but we don't want people thinking about it. We're going to say that it's demons. We're going to say it's the Russians, but whatever. We don't want people spending time on it. We're going to make it illegal. You're just, go to work. Make dinner. Buy stuff. Buy a Chevy.
Look down, not up, you idiots.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I don't know. The way that other things have been regulated or suppressed or ridiculed, like it just seems to fit into that model. And especially at the time, it makes sense. Like, I don't know. It's just it's this weird shift from we don't know and we genuinely want to find out, and we're going to put a bunch of time and money and effort into finding out.
You're right.
And then a sudden flip to like, no, it's nothing. Don't worry about it.
Right.
And is that because we couldn't figure it out and we don't want people spending time and worrying about it and trying to figure it out?
Right.
Or is it because we did figure it out and we don't want you to know about it?
Right.
Whatever it may be.
Right. Well, and maybe is there a third one where it's like, or I guess it's a byproduct of the first one, but like we didn't figure out what it was, but hasn't done anything bad yet, or at least we don't.
Depends on who you ask.
Well, right, but I mean, like, you see that many ghost rockets over your country, and they're not like blowing up buildings and shit. It's like, well.
But then
I guess we're okay.
By the 60s, they started taking people.
It's true.
Yeah, I guess in the 40s when they weren't abducting anybody or, beaming thoughts into your head, it was fine.
Like, I guess you can ignore that because paying attention to it isn't getting us anywhere. And so look down, not up again.
Don't worry about it.
Don't even worry about it.
Don't worry.
Don't worry.
All right. I think that's our time.
Or that's a wild one.
We out of here.
Yo, I think just really quickly before we go, we really have to thank everybody listening right now for 100 episodes of this show, man. I can't say enough how fun it's been to fucking get to know all y'all and to fucking voicemail and email and social with y'all. And make a show that apparently makes y'all laugh and get through your days and your drives and your gyms and shit better. So thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for sharing. Thank y'all for reviewing. Thank y'all for coming to live shows. Thank y'all for supporting on the Patreon. Fucking means the world to us.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. See you next week.
Listen, you wee bastards. Life's too short to be messing around. You need to live your life. Enjoy your time here on planet Earth.